Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Captain America, issue number 4. This was an interesting comic book. Again, I'm always going to be so hesitant until I have a better idea of where Chip is going with this story. I imagine by part 6, I should have a good idea, right? When this story is essentially wrapped up, I should have a good idea of how I feel about Chip's cap so far. Because there's some things I'm going this way on, some things I'm going this way on, right? And a whole lot that's just kind of hanging, and I'm trying really hard to reserve judgment. Let's get talking about who made this comic book. We'll go on from there. The writer is Chip Zdarsky. That's the Chip I was referring to in this comic called Our Secret Wars Part 4. The artist is Valerio Scheide. Color art by Frank Martin. And letters, VC's Joe Caramagna. Ben Harvey does the cover and the recap page. Bunch of variant covers out there. In Chip's newsletter, which he hasn't been doing a lot of lately, he showed his cover, his variant cover that he did. Actually pretty good. Chip's not the worst artist in the world. He's just nowhere near the best. I hope that's not an insult to anybody. Captain America was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. And I'm going to start off by saying that even if this comic book were written horribly, the art in here by Valerio Scheide is beyond reproach. It's going to be really hard for anybody to say that this comic wasn't drawn well, or this comic book wasn't done well, right? Frank Martin's colors on this, I'm trying to think, like, this is an amazing compliment to Valerio's art. Really well put together comic book. Seeing Captain America's chainmail, the blue part of his top, like the chainmail blouse that he's wearing, utterly amazing, right? Seeing the way that it hangs, the way that it moves as he's moving, there was so much thought put into this. Look at the way Doom moves when he's turning, he's twisting to the side, and you see his cape move in a certain way, right? Even his, I don't know if his part would be called a blouse, but the part that goes over top of his armor. Amazing seeing the way this stuff moves. The movement in here, like every Marvel artist in past, present, future has got to look at this as some kind of a blueprint for how you put together an expert comic book. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. There's talking. There's a very decent amount of talking in here, but it's almost like they made the panels big enough so the talking doesn't seem like it's too darn much, so that more of the art can actually be shown. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm happy to draw for the really wordy people, so this way I can leave a whole bunch of empty space so that the text boxes can go over. Not here. They're just like, oh, you like to talk a lot. Cool. Well, I'm going to make fewer panels so the panels can be bigger so that my art really shows through. I mean, like, amazing, this art. I could talk this whole entire review about the art and still not express just how much I love what I'm reading here. And really quickly, let's talk about the cover. When you read the comic book, you understand Ben Harvey's cover a whole lot more. Go back and look at the cover again, right? Look at I'm showing it in here. They always have these, preview pages, including the cover, available. Look at the cover after you read the comic book again. And what do you see? You see exactly what's happening in here without it saying that that's what's happening in here. The part with Colton kind of walking away. I have a love-hate relationship with Colton because a lot of us, I think most of us, are expecting that he's going to just straight out be a bad guy eventually. He's the new U.S. agent, right? Maybe. And I'm really hoping he's not going to be, right? He goes out of his way to try and save a kid. The part in here where somebody says to him, just throw that shield the way that Cap over there is throwing the shield. You're our Captain America. Throw the shield like he does. Won't it bounce off a bunch of walls and come back to you? He's like, no, I can't do that. This is a symbol for me. If I throw the shield, then the other side gets a shield. Like, that was hysterical, right? And so poignant when you're reading the guy. I don't want to give too many spoilers for this amazing book, guys, but Colton's journey, like fighting against this female Snake Eyes wannabe without an Uzi. It's like, how does she not have a firearm of any kind, right? Whatever, it is what it is. I guess it was necessary for telling the story that we got. If she would have lost it, it would have made more sense. But whatever. It's just the idea, like, this was. But then what happens with him at the end? You know, what he allows to happen to himself afterwards. But I forget. Did they say what happened? Why he went psych? Because this comic book starts out with Colton's psych profile, talking to his CO, his commanding officer. I'm wondering, like, I forget what happened. That's the problem with a monthly comic book, where this comic book is coming up so low profile, you know? Marvel, I expect to see a freaking, cardboard cutout that you put out and for free send to the comic book stores so that they can have extra copies of the Captain America comic book in it, and previous issues. That's what I expect. Amazing comic book, guys. Like, everything that I've gone over so far, amazing. Doctor Doom is clearly written here as a bad guy. I remember somebody, I think 2 issues ago, came at me a little bit. It seems like he came at me, but I'm not sure, so I just let it go. Whatever. I could hardly care less. But it's the idea that he goes and he points out, he's like, that's why if anybody has any question about Doctor Doom being a bad guy, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, I get you. I hear you. But not everybody makes Captain America into a true bad guy, right? Captain America is not the Red Skull. That's something to understand here. Not Captain America is not the Red Skull. Doctor Doom is not the Red Skull. Doctor Doom is not Magneto, right? We're talking about 3 different kinds of bad guys here. Skull is the ultimate bad guy in the sense of, well, I shouldn't say he's the ultimate bad guy. He's the ultimate in the sense of true evil. Evil is his superpower. I'm very curious how Chip will run the Red Skull, if he even chooses to go after the Red Skull, right? Because we're talking about a blatant, unadulterated evil that is just irredeemable. There is no way to and any supporter of Red Skull, it's like, bro, you are evil. You're maybe more evil because you don't have this damnable, corrupted soul inside of you. You've chosen to allow this to happen. Like, it's a weird thing, like with him. Following or being Magneto was like, yeah, we understand your pain, your hurt, and Doom, very similar thing, right? When you're a bad guy out of trauma, it's very different than being a bad guy because you are just a black-souled son of a gun, right? So I'm glad that Doom is being handled differently than the Red Skull should be handled. But at the same time, this does seem like a very... I get it that Doctor Doom is totalitarian, but here's the thing. I know there's nuance, and I understand that a republic, not a democracy. I love the idea that, and I hope this was intentional, that Doom was insulting a democracy because America is not a democracy. Yes, our word republic means a form of democracy, which it is, but it is not a true democracy. A true democracy would be terrible. It'd be absolutely terrible. You're talking about every idiot and their mother and their idiot mother who taught them having a vote on every single thing that happens. The government would not move policies would not move quickly when they need to move quickly, and everything would just move, in a way where you could go a complete polar shift. Imagine if more than half of the country were racist and we had a democracy. All of a sudden, you'd see 13% of the population back in chains, right? That that would never be a good thing, which is why we are a constitutional republic. Here's our constitution, here are the values that we have. If we're not there yet, we're aiming to try and get there, right? It's an ideal. And it's the absolute best form of government that this world has ever seen. And I don't know how that's up for debate. But not every dictator is necessarily an evil dictator. We have, what do you call it? Which is a little bit different than a monarchy, right? But we have dictators that are benevolent dictators, or at least every dictator will call himself benevolent, right? You look at what's happening in Rwanda. That's a benevolent dictator. Things are actually pretty good over there for Rwanda. Now, their policies for outside of Rwanda, not good at all. But inside of Rwanda, it's actually pretty good. But there are many people who will sit there and argue, yeah, but that's a really good dictatorship. It's about it's about really looking into and understanding these things, not in an article headline understanding of things. So the world is more complicated than a headline, right? And I think Doom should be a little bit more complicated, a little bit more nuanced than what I'm seeing here. But I'm glad he's not written the way the Red Skull should necessarily be written. It is what it is. But it's very interesting to see, right? The way that Doom is being written. He is a political figure. He should be divisive. It should not be something where he's just plainly and simply an evil individual. No, that's not the way Doom should necessarily be written. More bad than good, sure, I'm okay with that, depending on the story, right? Because at the same time, while sometimes he's been portrayed as a racist, he's also called Dracula a racist on the moon of all places, right? So we're in different categories here. The way Captain America is being portrayed, I'm cool with the way that he's understanding some of the world, different than what he fell asleep under. It's going to take a lot it always takes a lot to write Captain America. Easily, to me, the most important character in Marvel, where Captain America, the direction of Captain America's flag sets the wind for that's going to blow on all the rest of the characters in the Marvel Universe, right? Every other character in the Marvel Universe should be downstream from Captain America. If Cap isn't in the front of whatever major problem there is in the world, then there's a problem. Then you have a civil war. And that is what is so crucial to understand about Cap's character. Always bugs me when I hear somebody saying that Tony Stark was right. Like, really? A nation led by emotion is what you would prefer? Really? A nation that is just willy-nilly, and quite literally that definition of democratic, right? That benevolent dictatorship, right? That sort of a thing. That is what you would rather? You're clearly not an X-Men fan if that's the case, right? It always boggled me. But we're all always going to understand things differently, and that's okay. That's why communication is so important. And these Captain America comics are a form of communication. Again, Chip Zdarsky being a Canadian who, in my estimation, is far more liberal than he is conservative. And even then, conservative here in Canada is not the same as conservative in America, right? In my mindset, if you're not conservative, then you don't know what you are, because it can mean so many different things. Conservative means let's stick with what's worked so far. And if it hasn't worked for everybody, let's see what we could do about trying to expand things, trying to change things a little bit, but we need to stick with the core principles of what we have, because and the only way that a lot of people can try and make that work is to say, no, your nation is evil, everything about it is evil, everything about it is like Colton CO in here, where he's okay with, setting up things where, oh yeah, we're actually here to kill people, not to save them. They had a very easy opportunity to save people. At any moment, this Snake Eyes chick could have just offed this, whatever this guy was, diplomat, senator, right? Envoy. This person could have been offed if they were going to be recaptured again. But this sort of idea, I'm really hoping this doesn't tie back to Colton CO. I'm really hoping this is not going to be a case of just following orders, because as somebody who is in the military, I can assure you, especially when we're talking Army of all things, Army is known for frags, which means you toss a grenade in the tent of your captain who is leading you the wrong way, right? Who's doing something that we simply don't agree with, right? That's our version of democracy for you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no. Somebody who's just following orders, we don't accept that. You've got to be a heck of a lot smarter than that. The captain is meant to be, and understand this, because Captain America. But the word captain, the title captain in the military, specifically in the Army, which is what Steve Rogers is attached to and was when he was growing up, is supposed to be that middleman between the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers, and the higher up officers. Captain is only 3 ranks high. There's second lieutenant, first lieutenant, and then captain. After that, it starts going up into the higher tiers, towards general, towards 4 and even possibly 5-star general if we're in a major war, right? So that's important to understand, that a captain who is too this way is going to get fragged. A captain who's too this way is going to be decommissioned or reassigned, right? So there's a big difference there. There's a huge difference there. And that's why I love that Captain America is a captain, not a general, right? Not a major, not a private or a sergeant, any of the ranks of sergeant, not even a sergeant major, not a command sergeant major of the Army, right? He's none of those. He is a captain. There's only one rank of captain, and there's only one Captain America. He is that middle pivot person, and it's Captain America, not Captain Woke, not Captain whatever. No, it's Captain America. Everything else should be downstream of Captain America. And I really hope that's just more than just punching people in the face and hitting them in the perfect, pressure point spot with your shield. It's more than that. And I know Chip is an incredible person in person, a person who, in my experience, will give you bags for your comic books that you've been buying at a show, and will even help you put your comics in a bag. Like, I'm talking the polyurethane sleeves, right? He's an amazing human being. And yeah. Anyway, I hope he really understands, as a Canadian, what America is. Anyway, guys, that's all for me. I'll talk to you guys later. Like the video, watch an ad. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.